Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the James Skrmetta Show podcast, presented to you by Macard Anderson and Associates PLLC. Woo! What a podcast we have in store for you. When I was doing the prep for this show, I was all over the damn place. We have stories about Kanye West, Hilary Clinton, Ghislaine Maxwell, the Washington Redskins. We've got stuff everywhere. Naked protesters in Portland. Everything you could ever want is right here for you. Now, a little housekeeping. Last week, it was kind of housekeeping, I guess, just a little show information as we do. Last week, incredible week for the show, for the platform. A ton of people reached out, asked me about the show, asked me how the show is doing, said they listened to it for the first time, the second time, they enjoyed it. A couple of numbers. I don't like to talk about numbers too much, but sometimes, they're strong enough to where they need to be talked about. Across YouTube last week, our videos had more than 10,000 views in 1 week. So something's happening here, and I could not do it without each and every one of you. Word of mouth is obviously the best way to spread this show. If you enjoy the show, whether you listen to it on Spotify or iTunes or whatever, Anchor, Stitcher, wherever podcasts are sold, please do leave a review and all of that. Tell your friends if they're looking for a podcast. And if you do follow it on YouTube, make sure to subscribe, hit the notifications button. That is the best way to know when we drop a video. We're dropping much more videos, a lot more content recently across our media empire. So make sure to check out all of that. I won't bore you with those details, but I do like to, when we do hit some milestones, I do like to let everyone know because I feel like y'all are part of this as much as I am. Y'all are the people listening, the people viewing, the consumers who's being a part of it. And really, it's almost like y'all are the board of supervisors. Y'all make sure the show is going the right direction by giving feedback and consuming it and all that stuff. And so it's this weird little give and take. It's almost like I'm a dancing clown for all of your entertainment. So let's get to the show. Where are we? I think that's kind of the theme with every one of these shows. This show really kind of started, we started in January. We started January 1st, or the first week of January, and we've done an episode every week. And really, really shortly after was coronavirus and COVID, this new normal, this new world we live in. And I think each week is almost like a reflection of where the hell are we? It's almost like we're trying to figure out where we are in this whole thing. What's the universe look like? And that transverses a lot of different things. It transverses the political sector. It transverses the pop culture. It transverses medicine. All of that, we kind of take a snapshot week by week of how we're doing. And I think COVID is the foundation of that. This week, or on this podcast, COVID is in a really interesting place because it's, as far as the virus, it's still doing what it's doing. It's still the same issue. Now, it became very politicized, and we've talked about that on the show a lot, where we begged people to wear a mask here, and we almost dedicated an entire episode to why people aren't wearing the mask. How has it become this Republican, this conservative versus Democrat, this liberal, conservative, Republican, Democrat, red, blue, donkey, elephant? How has it become this? It's just a virus. We've said you don't hear strep throat getting politicized. You don't hear the flu being a part of someone's presidential campaign. And somehow this virus has become that. It's really more of the same now. It's more of the same of wear a mask or don't wear a mask. The numbers are skyrocketing, and we're seeing people flat out ignore it and flat out try and debunk it instead of just wearing the mask or staying home. And I was in a conversation last weekend with some friends, and we were talking about the coronavirus, and we were bringing up, I was kind of talking about the same things I talk here on the show, where I want to just be real about this thing. I think the conversation, if it goes more than about 2 sentences, it is really too much. The conversation should be, hey, just wear a mask. Hey, do your social distancing. The conversation really shouldn't be like, hey, what about these numbers? Hey, what about people saying this isn't real? Hey, what about the death rate? Hey, what about this? And following that, I read this really interesting report about why they believe that America is struggling so much with the coronavirus. Some places in the world, like New Zealand, have completely eradicated the virus. New Zealand reported 0 cases. They are COVID-19 free. And the report was talking about just kind of the societal expectations of these places. What makes these places tick? And does what makes America tick, I have a feeling that grammar was really bad, does what make America tick somehow kind of lead towards a negative of how it responds to the virus? And when you think about America, right, what are some of the things that makes America America? It's always the individual, right? This individual opportunity, this idea that you're always in control. You are always in power of you. The individual is celebrated in America more than anywhere else in the world. The individual has all the power. One person can make huge changes. Everyone has the right to speak. Everyone has the right to their own thoughts. Everyone is the navigator of their own ship. That's not really what it's like in a lot of other places, for better or for worse. A lot of places are community driven, and a lot of places put the community first. Now, I don't want that to get mixed up with, some weird communism kind of thing, because you get a few of those words mixed up, all of a sudden you're part of a collective. And anytime you're part of a collective, not good at all. But America highlights those things. I mean, it's kind of funny, but the like the super stereotypical America, there's like the Hollywood, the pomp and circumstance, all that, the stuff that gets glamorized in movies and TV shows. That really is kind of only in America where you see that. And I think that kind of idea is a huge problem with COVID, and a huge problem of what you're seeing around you in COVID. There was recently a video that compared how America's handling the mask to, and I'm talking about the medical mask, not the blockbuster movie with Jim Carrey, but how America's handling the mask versus how like Korea handles the mask. And they showed video clips and news clips of both. In Korea, everyone's just wearing the mask per usual. They're walking around. It's not a big deal. They interviewed people and they were like, hey, why are you wearing a mask? And they would say, well, droplets is how you get the disease or the virus. We don't want it. If we wear the mask for a few weeks, hopefully it'll be gone. It's my duty as an individual to help the community and to help the cause. I don't want to get people sick. And they would splice that with videos of Americans who are storming around and violently protesting and just throwing these huge fits with the mask, saying that it's killing them, how it's against their freedoms.
I am not a sex slave that wears masks.
You literally cannot mandate somebody to wear a mask knowing that mask is killing people.
Look at all of these sheep that are here, all wearing this mask. It's actually dangerous for them.
How they won't do it. They'd rather die. How it's fake. How there's a higher power at play here. And it was very interesting to see the two, the dynamics. And when I really sat back and thought about it, it made a lot of sense. Because I'm hearing a lot of that from people who don't wear the mask, people who even don't want to believe in COVID. I'm hearing a lot of people saying things like, oh, it's my bachelorette party, it's my wedding, it's my birthday, it's my July 4th. I still want to do that. I'm not going to let this get in the way of my good time. I'm not going to let this get in the way of my party. I'm not going to let this get in the way of my whatever. And they go and do it. I mean, this is something that, as I thought about it, and especially with stuff we've talked about on the show, I couldn't help but be like, oh, well, that's exactly true. That's exactly it. That's exactly right. I mean, I know people who have COVID and are still going out and partying and still going out and doing things because they don't want to miss whatever it is. And it seems like that is the thing that's working against us the most, is this idea of individual over community. And, it's kind of funny because it's like, it's almost karma or something, where America has succeeded in every single aspect of every single thing for the entirety of time, and now that, like, what made America what it was, the foundation of what it was, and what made people here so different than other people, that individual, component is it right now making us look like the laughing stock of the earth right now. I heard somebody say that America is to the rest of the world right now what Florida is to America. And it was kind of tongue in cheek. And I know this sounds right now like a lot of America bashing. And I obviously don't want to come off like that. I love America more than anybody. I'm all for the United States. I'm very proud of where I'm from, and I think it's the greatest country in the world. Absolutely no doubt about it. But right now, I think is one of the worst black eyes on the country. And it is embarrassing when you see, when I see videos of people protesting and getting upset and crying about the mask while our numbers skyrocket. It is embarrassing when I see people, going out and funneling beers, partying, knowing they have COVID, instead of just staying home and protecting people. It's really kind of affected how I look at other people. It's really affected how I look at groups of people and whatnot that live around me. I know groups who I've seen throughout this whole process who haven't even thought about social distancing, quarantining, all that stuff. And as weird as it sounds and dramatic as it sounds, when I look at those people, it's like, how can I possibly trust you to make a good decision? Or how can I possibly trust you to have a long-term plan? Or I obviously, you're obviously being as selfish as possible, And again, I'm not talking about, going to an outdoor function with 10 people or 15 people. July 4th, it was raining July 4th, but like Memorial Day weekend or something, I was at a pool with family, probably 8 of us there, and it was fine. We were outdoors. It was an outdoor pool kind of thing. Maybe 8 to 10 people. It was fine. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who are going out in these large parties. Look like it's just spring break all over again, and they're passing around bottles of Fireball or playing, beer pong or whatever they're doing, funneling, stuff like that. And it's like, those people are just letting me know, and then documenting it and posting it and all of that. It's one thing if you do it. It's another thing if you document it and post it. It's like, to me, it's almost like a scarlet letter or something, where I look at those people like, oh, you're one of the people who I saw doing this, And I just think that it's a really interesting kind of look at why we're struggling. Because there's no doubt we are struggling. There's absolutely no doubt America right now is struggling compared to a lot of the rest of the world, where they seem to have it under control, and we just can't do that. And maybe it is a reflection of our country, and not just our country as far as what I was talking about, but also the fact that we're so polarized. Trump being president, or even if you go back a little bit when Obama was president, we have had these incredibly polarizing figures who have created this divide between people. I mean, like back in the day, you could be a Republican and believe some, Democratic policies. You could be a Democrat and believe some Republican things. Now it's closer to like a civil war than it is two political parties. It's closer right now to which side are you fighting for versus what do you believe in. I mean, like to say, and I've said on this platform a billion times, I voted for Trump and plan on voting for Trump again, but I don't really like Trump. Like, I think Trump has done kind of a bad job in this sphere of this virus. I think what he says a lot of the time is kind of ridiculous, and I think that he could be he leaves a lot to be desired. I feel like that's really rare now, is to be able to say, yeah, well, I believe some of these Democratic things, but also vote Republican, or vice versa. Now it's like, if you're a Republican, you're buying guns and ammo and blocking off your house, and you're, in like a doomsday situation. And then if you're a Democrat, you're having sex changes and, all hell's breaking. Like, there is no middle. And I think that's another reason why we can't just get on the same page, is that even a virus, right? Even a virus where it's, hey, can we all just kind of come together here and like for 2-3 weeks, just kind of quarantine up, wear a mask, it's not a big deal. And what happens? You got half the people running a conspiracy theory with the mask, saying that the government's putting on the masks so that they kill people, and the mask is somehow like poisoning people. Then you have the other side who aren't leaving their house at all, and they're in a total bubble. and they believe that COVID is like a Chinese biological warfare thing that's been sent over here so that Big Pharma can collect money. It is nuts, So it's just a great mirror of kind of what's going on here. And that's a lot of me just spitballing these ideas and kind of theorizing of what's going on. But when you really look at it, it's an interesting reflection of how we are as a people right now, where we can't even get this virus right. Which leads me to what's going on in Portland, the next story. So Portland is in 50 days of conflict. I actually didn't even realize this. Portland is in 50 days of strife. 50 days of protests and just all hell breaking loose. And there was a lot of this is going to sound crazy, but there was a woman who went out in the streets, and I'll post some pictures on the YouTube version of the podcast. But she went out into the streets, and she posed, and she was protesting, like wearing a mask and doing yoga, and she was fully in the nude. Fully in the nude. And they're calling her Naked Athena. Let me read you from the Washington Post how they are describing Naked Athena. Here we go. This is from the Washington Post, from editorial writer Molly Roberts, who I'm sure is a kind woman. Entirely naked, she was entirely new. Portland has seen more than 50 days of unrest, filled with peaceful protests sometimes and dumpsters up in flames other times, with local police loosing tear gas on curfew breakers, blah, 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 blah. Legs splayed across the pavement opposite an exquisitely equipped line of officers. She was everything they were not. Natural where the camouflage-clad cops were unnatural, vulnerable where they were armored, perhaps at a loss for how to contend with an unclothed female body. They shot rubber balls at her feet, and then, dumbstruck or defeated, retreated. No one seems to know her name yet. The Los Angeles Times described her as an apparition emerging out of a hazy night. You may have thought the story spinners would have called her some sort of nymph. Instead, they named her Athena, goddess of war. What the are we talking about? What are we even writing, Molly? This sounds like 2 paragraphs of some fan fiction, or the next chapter of the next Lord of the Rings prequel. This was just a naked lady doing yoga. Have we lost the plot? Have we officially lost it? Have we officially lost the protesting means? Have we officially... I talked about this a little bit whenever we got into the Christopher Columbus statue destruction. Does anybody remember why we're protesting? At what point... This is the point, right? This is the point where the protests don't mean anything anymore. Whenever we have a naked lady in a mask doing downward dog in the middle of the damn street with a bunch of camouflage security personnel firing off rubber bullets, that's when you look around and you're just like, guys, what are we doing? What are we actually protesting? What do y'all want? What do you want from us? We've got a lady. I mean, it's one thing. It's crazy that it's happening. It's crazy that we're having people doing namaste, yoga, meditation practices in the middle of the street. And I don't know about Portland, but I've seen the middle of a lot of streets. I've been to New Orleans, okay? If you go and sit in the middle of Bourbon Street naked, you're never going to be the same. Ever. You're never going to be the same. I would guess Portland is very similar. If you're in Portland and your legs spread wide open, cheeked up, in the middle of a 4-way stop, your insides are never going to be the same. And, the fact that the Washington Post and the LA Times or whoever runs this insanely glamorizing expose on this is just as crazy. This is when the game should end. This is when someone should come down and say, all right, police, you've lost. Protesters, you've lost. Everyone go home. We're starting over next week. Everything is normal. Y'all have both screwed up so massively that this is where we're at. Y'all have completely abandoned. To be totally honest with you, if you told me right now, James, what do you think Naked Athena was protesting? My first guess would be George Floyd, but I honestly don't know if that's it. And if that is it, it's even crazier. Because it could be like, do you know, listener or viewer, what would you guess Naked Athena was protesting? I still don't know. I've read like 3 stories on this to prep for the show. I'm not totally sure what they're even protesting. Like, let's look that up. Let's actually look that up live on the show, and I'm gonna see. We're gonna see what she was protesting.
12 seconds later.
Okay, I just looked it up. It is George Floyd. It is George Floyd and police brutality. So we've reached a whole nother level. Let's really think about the George Floyd thing so far. So George Floyd, the protests start. We're protesting police brutality. Then we move on to where we're protesting like Christopher Columbus statues or something. And then we move on and we cancel Splash Mountain, Dixie Beer, the Dixie Chicks, Lady Antebellum. They all fall. Gone with the Wind. They all fall. Okay? They're just in the wake of protests. Then we keep going. What's next? Then Deshaun Jackson and Steven Jackson are somehow protesting some like anti-Semitic Secret Children of Israel. Talked about it on the podcast last show. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go check that out. We spent about 40 minutes on it. We somehow bash the Jews. We circle all the way back. This is over the course of 50 days. We circle all the way back, and now we have naked crow poses in 4-way stops by Naked Athena. Do you see how this is all going kind of haywire? Do you see how this is all kind of going backwards? Do you see how this is kind of just like, we're not really protesting anymore? I'm not even sure what we're doing. Naked Athena isn't protesting at all. Naked Athena is doing the same thing that Charlie and Dixie D'Amelio are doing on TikTok. Which, nothing wrong with TikTok. If anybody knows cloud is king, it's me. But Naked Athena is just trying to make this about her. She's making this protest about her. And it's not all her fault. It's the media's fault. It's everybody's fault. It's everyone's fault that these protests have fallen so far away from what they should be about that we get things like Naked Athena. And, it's kind of sad, to be honest, that when George Floyd died, the police brutality, all that stuff, or just the police training, just the overhaul of kind of the idea of, how the police are run, whatever, it really could have been addressed. A lot of stuff could have been addressed. COVID and this police thing was the time to address a lot of concerns about society and just kind of how we do things. And now we're, protesting masks and having naked yoga instructors. Like, we've messed up. And not we, but these protests and we had a real chance. We had a real chance to enact change across a wide swath of things, and instead, this is what we got. And what else do we have? Great question. We also have Kanye West. Kanye West pseudo announced that he was running for president, and Kanye West announced that he was. This is like 2 weeks ago. Announced he was running for president. Well, turns out you can't. You can't just pop up out of nowhere, run for president. Like, documents had to be signed. You know how it is. You got to show some birth certificates, whatever. So he's not actually in the race. He is kind of in the race. He's not, though. He's in the race as much as like that really crazy guy from your hometown who runs on every ballot of everything. And he's just been trying to get weed passed for like 20 years. You know the guy. He drives around in a weed van, wears like a weed suit. He's on the mayoral ballots. He's on the presidential ballots. He's just some independent guy. That's what Kanye's trying to do. So Kanye has his first campaign rally in South Carolina. We're going to play some audio and video from this. Audio, obviously, on podcast, video on YouTube. Of Kanye's first campaign. And we'll see how that goes for Kanye West.
Right. I'm not trying to quiet your voices, actually, so I don't want to say that in an improper way. I just haven't had the time to word it in the most elegant way possible. So that's a Stephen move. When Harriet Tubman never actually freed the slaves. She just had the slaves go work for other white people.
Y'all, we leaving right now.
So that's a really interesting start, is to go after Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman is not actually in the race. Most of the time when you're doing a campaign, you want to be talking about people who you're trying to defeat. Joe Biden and Donald Trump in the situation. Harriet Tubman is probably not the right person for Kanye to go after. Also, if you're listening on audio, Kanye is wearing a very classy bulletproof vest during this rally. And so Harriet Tubman is the first victim of Kanye's rant. He will soon turn the vitriol to his own daughter, which is even more of an interesting move for Mr. West.
She said she was pregnant, and for 1 month, and 2 months, and 3 months, we talked about her not having this child. She had the pills in her hand. Do people know these pills where you take the pills, and if you take it, it's a wrap. The baby's gone. So I was sitting up in Paris, and I had my leather pants on. You already know, if you got leather pants on, you already know who this person must think they are. Right?
Kanye is talking about, obviously, Kim taking some Plan B pills or having an abortion, whatever. He's talking about him wearing leather pants. I'm not sure that has to do with anything, but it's interesting how the juxtaposition between him talking about aborting his child and him being the man, him wearing leather pants, sitting in Paris, like having it all, still being Kanye West. And this is something he kind of does back and forth the whole time. It's a weird juxtaposition of like, he's very upset, he's very distressed, but he's also, he knows like he's comforted by the idea of him being the man and him still being Kanye West.
And I'm in the apartment where my wife was actually robbed. And I have my laptop up, and I got all of my creative ideas. I got my shoes, I got my sound cover, I got communities, I got clothes, I got all this. And the screen went black and white. And God said, if you fuck with my vision, I'm going to fuck with yours.
So another, narcissistic move here is that he believes that he has a direct line to God, basically. That God is somehow kind of in control of his visions, or God somehow is in control of his creative process or his creative ideas, and that whatever he's doing is so important that God would come down and directly affect his MacBook. God would directly go after his shoes, and would directly go after his clothing line, because God's kind of watching Kanye West at all times.
And I called my wife, and she said, we're going to have this baby. My mom saved my life. My dad wanted to abort me. My mom saved my life. There would have been no Kanye West because my dad was too busy.
On side of everything, but it's kind of like he's almost making his daughter to be out like a celestial being. Like God's vision was this child. This child is almost directly from God. That God would force Kanye to have this baby, and this baby were to be almost like a divine creation. Unwanted, almost aborted. God intervenes and threatens some shoes or something, threatens some clothes, and says, you better have this baby because I've got big plans for this baby. And they end up having this baby. So it's kind of this, not out of touch situation, but a completely insane situation. So Kanye starts to really cry at this point. This is a great example of, like, if you've ever been to a rehearsal dinner for a wedding and the best man or the maid of honor starts to give their speech, and it's just kind of all over the place. It's just kind of out of control. This is a good example of when you should stop. Someone should come in and say, hey, man, you might want to go ahead and call this one. You might want to go ahead and get out of here, brother. It's time to go. That's how it should be. If you're ever at a rehearsal dinner and the best man or maid of honor starts to cry, starts about how they wanted to abort their daughter, talks about how God interrupted their creative process, get them out of the area. Grab them and get them on, just go to the bar, go outside, get some air. We've all been there, okay? There's a lot of pressure. And this is that times a billion, because this is not a rehearsal dinner at an Outback. This is a presidential campaign.
Abortion should be legal, but the option of maximum increase should be available. Maximum increase would be everybody that has a baby gets $1 million or something in that way.
So interesting, right? Kanye decides that abortion should be legal, though, which is kind of crazy because he just gave this whole teary-eyed speech of why it should be bad. But then he says, but there should be an option where if you have a baby, you get $1 million, which we don't have to get into that. We all know that's a bad idea. But it's a good example again where what would the idea that abortion is bad, the morality of it, the ethics of it, the fact that you're killing a human, the fact that you're taking a life, that you're not taking responsibility for your own actions, all that stuff aside, what Kanye really listens to is the $1 million part. Now, I don't want to harp too much on Kanye's campaign or Kanye's presidential run. What I do want to talk about is something that we actually spoke about in length here on the show. And I don't like to say I told you so or I'm right or that I've been right about literally everything we've said in 2020. But we talked about that COVID and the quarantine and all that would destroy this idea of celebrity. So up until now, celebrity has been this crazy thing in our culture because they live this glamorous life and they're always made up and they have writers and they have these behind the scenes and they have perfect video and perfect audio. But once COVID took all that away and we saw things like Ellen DeGeneres in her own house with her camera weirdly angled and no makeup on, and it was a disaster. We've seen late night TV shows just kind of be in someone's room, and all of a sudden it's a lot of like, well, wait a minute, if it's not for like, what actually are these people? These are normal people. And we talked about how they would all just be forced to do podcasts and YouTube channels. We've seen that with Brie Larson has a YouTube channel now. Mark Paul Gossinger, the Saved by the Bell person, just started a podcast where he's rewatching Saved by the Bell, which we also said would happen. The Scrubs actors have a podcast where they're watching Scrubs. The Office actresses have a podcast where they're rewatching The Office. It's all kind of crumbling down, and it's all very obvious, like that the idea of celebrity in this bubble where there is no social construct, where there is really no society, where there is nothing, it's just kind of people sitting around and people just doing the same stuff we're doing, right? And Kanye is that times a million. Kanye West, before this, was a lot of people were kind of half-heartedly behind the idea of Kanye running for president. They were kind of half-heartedly behind the idea of like, well, yeah, he's a genius. He's a creative genius. Maybe he'd be a good president. And this is a good reminder, that you can be a genius. You can be a creative genius, or you can be a really good painter or an artist or a musician or a guitarist or a producer or whatever. But that doesn't make you a good person. And it doesn't make you someone who's fit for anything. Kanye West, if you look at him on the outside, he's a billionaire. He's married to Kim Kardashian. He's, made some of the best albums ever. He's a super successful producer. He as far as we know, he kind of made it from nothing. He's an incredible marketer, all that stuff. But that doesn't mean that he can't deal with the same problems a lot of us deal with. He doesn't mean he can't deal with a lot of mental health problems, or maybe he's just not fit to do anything but his little alley. A lot of people are like that. A lot of people are super proficient in one thing, but are not great in another thing. We've seen people, and I'm sure people who aren't celebrities, but they may be incredibly good at math. They may be the smartest person you ever met, full-on genius, but they're socially inept. They can't talk to people. They have no social skills. They might be mean. They may be rude. And Kanye is just another example of that world falling apart in front of us during this whole thing. Now, that's not to say that all celebrities are like that. I think there are some celebrities who are genuinely pretty good people. Genuinely like, yeah, this person probably could be okay in any realm. And then there's some people who just couldn't. There's some people who are propped up by this false idea of celebrity. And a lot of these false social constructs are falling away all around us. We've talked about here the idea that, like, work. The idea in work, the social constructs of, 8 to 5, or wear this outfit, or, whatever, being an extension of your job, all those are falling apart. It's really, really hard to believe in a lot of these things right now. It's really, really hard to reflect on a lot of these things because they just don't seem real. They just don't seem like they make sense anymore. And the Kanye West thing is just another example where, and it might be a marketing ploy. It might just be one big marketing ploy where Kanye's doing this to sell an album. And if that's the case, it's even worse. Because if that's the case, we kind of have this magnifying glass and everything right now. People just kind of see through it. People just kind of see through the idea that, oh, well, Kanye's Kanye, right? It's just Kanye being Kanye. Kind of like the Taylor Swift thing. When he was on stage with Taylor Swift and all that happened, and it was kind of like, man, that's kind of weird. Maybe he was drunk. Maybe he's just that egotistical. Maybe it was a joint promotion. Like, you never know. But it passed. The news cycle moved on, and Kanye, it all worked out. But now it's like people kind of see through the phoniness. People kind of see through everything else. Like, what we saw wasn't Kanye West, or the celebrity Kanye West. What we saw was just some guy like crying and making an awful speech, and for whatever reason, it is what it is, and it happened. And I think people are generally kind of put off from that now, whereas a couple years ago they wouldn't have been. And that's this new world we are in, where things, just like what I'm saying with work, if you're told, hey, you can only take a 1 hour lunch. You have to be back exactly 60 minutes. I think back then people were like, yeah, that's how it is. And now people look at it like, why? That for what? What does it matter if I'm an hour or an hour 10? So I think right now people are just quicker to question what we once had. And, I feel bad for Kanye if he's actually going through stuff, because obviously dealing with that kind of stuff on a huge global scope is not easy. But I think anyone who was half-heartedly saying Kanye 2020, I love his albums, love his CDs, I think that all put the kibosh on that. And now we're hearing things about him and Kim Kardashian being divorced, and he's coming out with a lot more crazy tweets, and it's hard to watch. But again, I think that this is a good reminder of just how we talk about, whenever you're in a situation like COVID, where it's pretty much just you and your local community, that stuff just doesn't exist, and that stuff isn't as powerful as it once was. Like the Kanye thing. I mean, Kanye West as a celebrity right now is less important than Kanye West as just a person for whatever the hell he's gone towards. And the idea of like, oh, no, but he's Kanye West. It's like, yeah, well, Kanye West just made the same speech I heard, my cousin Jimmy give at, my other cousin's wedding. And things didn't go well for Jimmy. He got sent to rehab pretty quickly after. So, get well. T's and P's for Kanye West. T's and P's for Kanye West. Guys, can I talk to you quickly about Mackhard Anderson & Associates PLLC, our presenting sponsor, an incredible sponsor for the show. I've had multiple people ask me about Mackhard Anderson & Associates. And listen, this is what you need to know. Those billboard lawyers that are, their giant faces are out there, and you go driving by, and they're telling you, 1 click, that's it. 15 minutes, that's all. It's all a scam, bottom line. It's a scam. It's like Arbonne, okay? Would you trust Arbonne to handle your future? Would you trust Roden Fields to handle you and your family's security? I certainly hope not. And that's why I tell you, if you have a situation where you need legal counsel, you need litigation, you need negotiation, all the Asians, car wrecks, 18-wheeler collisions, wrongful death, bad faith insurance claims, fire loss, termite damage, offshore injuries, employment discrimination, contract business disputes, anything I listed or else, don't waste your time one clicking, that's it. Don't waste your time with a 15-minute phone call with some intern, not the guy who's on the billboard. Call my friends at Mackhard Anderson & Associates, PLLC, 601-450-1715, or go to their website, mackhardlaw.com. That is MCHARDLAW.com. They will give you the red velvet rope treatment. Tell them you heard about their services here on the James Skrmetta Show podcast, and they will move you to the front of the line and get you in touch with someone who is deserving of handling your family's safety and security. Think about it, guys. You get T-boned by an 18-wheeler. Your family's in distress. Your paycheck's in distress. You need someone in your corner to do the negotiation and the litigation for you. Who do you want? Do you want some fake guy who's basically some mythological creature that hangs out on a billboard? Do you want that guy? Do you want a guy who's telling you that he'll give you the same amount of time, or he'll give you the same phone call that you would give to your local pizza place? One call, 15 minutes. Do you want the guy who's going to tell you one click, that's it? You get more clicks in a game of Minesweeper than you do with a lot of these billboard fake boy lawyers. Don't trust them with your security. Don't trust them with your family. Trust the good folk at Mackhard, Anderson and Associates, PLLC. Thank you again for them being the presenting sponsor. I do appreciate that. Guys, have y'all heard about this Hilary Clinton alternative history show? So there's an Hulu. What do we need right now, Hulu? Please tell me. Hulu, save yourself. Hulu knows people are at home. Hulu knows people are stuck inside. What do they want to watch? Hulu is in development of the new TV show Rodham, which is an alternative history show which takes place in a world in which Hilary Rodham never married Bill Clinton. The series is described as telling the story of an ambitious young woman developing her extraordinary mind in the latter part of the 20th century. This is it, guys. This is the future, okay? This is the future of what we're going to be dealing with. This alternative history. This used to be something, people lied about. People tricked other people. This alternative history idea, all this stuff. Now we're doing it out in the flesh. We're just rewriting history like it's nothing. How insane is this? That they are taking Hillary Rodham Clinton's life and they're removing Bill Clinton and they're rewriting her entire history and making a TV show. 30 years from now, you'll look back and you won't even know what the hell was real. People will be like, hey, what do you think about Hillary Clinton? And you're going to be like, are you talking about Hillary Rodham? No, Hillary Clinton. I don't know who you're talking about. You're talking about Hillary Rodham, the genius from the 20th century who won the presidency on her own without the help of anybody, who didn't murder hundreds of people, who wasn't involved in a sex trafficking pedophilia ring. Are you talking about Hillary Rodham? Well, I guess so. I thought I was talking about Hillary Clinton, but maybe I was talking about Hillary Rodham. Maybe you're right. That's how this happens. Okay? That's how all this takes place. In 100 years from now, who knows what history will be. We're about to have alternative TV shows, alternative movies. We're about to have anything. I mean, imagine if ESPN came out and was like, hey, we're working on a 15-part series. It's about that time that the Atlanta Falcons beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl. It's like, wait, what are you talking about? The Patriots beat the Falcons. It was a 28-3. It was a huge comeback. Yeah. But this is an alternative history show where we talk about that Falcons dynasty that happened and they beat the Patriots and they won 3 straight Super Bowls. And who is doing this? Is this from Matt Ryan's film studio? Like, who's greenlighting this Hillary Rodham thing? Who says we need this? An alternative history show about Hillary's fake life? They're taking Hillary and they're making a living person a fictional character. That's insane. Okay? It's one thing if you have it's an alternative history if the Nazis would have won the war and it's fictitious people and it's kind of like a background. That's whatever. That's just the background for a show, a background for a movie. I mean, Titanic was a real life thing that we changed the history of a little bit to create the beautiful love story of Jack and Rose. Fine. Who cares? But to take a living person and to make a biographical series about them, so you're basically crafting a fictional story with a real person and overlaying it of their exact time that they're living. What? This is the beginning, guys, of a dystopian nightmare where we don't know what's real, we don't know what's false. This is the moon landing on steroids. This is the beginning. Okay, I don't know what to tell you. It doesn't sound bad. It sounds like it's just a stupid show and Hulu no one will watch. I'm telling you right now, this is how this shit happens. This is how history books end up crazy. If aliens come down and aliens go to wherever the hell they send the hats and the t-shirts from the people who lose the Super Bowl, and they start seeing a bunch of Chicago Bears Super Bowls and Indianapolis Colts beat the Saints and a bunch of stuff like that, if they start seeing that kind of stuff, what do you trust the aliens to believe? Okay? So in 50, 60 years, when people, if they don't know who Hilary Clinton is, and they watch Rodham, what do you want them to believe? They're not going to know who Bill Clinton is. It's a crazy world we're in, man. We're going to end the show touching on the last subject here. I would be remiss if I don't talk about Ghislaine. Is it Ghislaine Maxwell or Ghislaine? I don't know. I got to feel it's not Ghislaine. Ghislaine, we're going to say G. Maxwell or Ghislaine Maxwell. Who knows what the hell we're going to say. But, so she's been arrested. And the Epstein thing is still kind of this, like, it's kind of wild because it's this overhanging problem that I think is like one of the biggest problems going on right now, is that we still are in this period where the Epstein thing happened. You know, the Epstein thing happened where they murdered this guy in a jail cell and covered up a global pedophilia ring with the biggest world leaders out there. And now we have Ghislaine Maxwell, really the last link to Epstein. Now, they have her. What are they about to do? Are they about to just sniff her out? And we're about to just be like, well, okay, I guess she accidentally died too. You know, I've seen reports about how she's being moved around from cell to cell to dodge assassins. And, you know, you start uncovering stuff with her. And, you know, she's worth hundreds of millions of dollars and no one knows why. And, you know, Trump is wishing her well. I mean, it's getting crazy out here. And it's interesting because a lot of people are really freaked out about this. And a lot of people are really worried, you know, that about what's happening and who's ruling the world and what really is taking place. And I just want to comfort everybody by saying this Jeffrey Epstein stuff, this Ghislaine Maxwell stuff, this is not new, right? This is the same place, this is the same people who bolt action sniper rifled a living United States president in the middle of a parade in Dallas. Okay, these are the same lizard people, global elite who have you know faked the moon landing. All right, so if you think that right now is the first time this is all happening and you're kind of confused and kind of scared, have faith and feel okay in yourself and go to sleep knowing that this has been happening for decades. These global cover-ups, these uber powerful people who live in these caves and no one knows who the hell they are. Just rest assured that they've been doing this for 60, 70 years now. And look at the world. Look how great the world is. Okay? So if you're worried that presidents and kings and queens and royal family members and actors and actresses and musicians and late-night talk show hosts are all part of some weird pedophilia ring with Jeffrey Epstein on St. James's Island or whatever it was called, and there's hundreds of millions of dollars being transferred from Russian banks to Ghislaine Maxwell's personal accounts, which are then distributed to Jeffrey Epstein while he buys multi-million-dollar mansions in New York and Florida and Virgin Islands, which are just called the islands after Jeffrey Epstein and his cohorts visit them, if you know what I'm saying. If you're worried about all of that, just, you know, put it all aside. Just put it all aside. We are in truly a Truman Show simulation type situation here, and all I can tell you is to live life however the hell you want to live it. Whatever makes you happy, do. You know, I really don't know. It's one of those deals where you're looking at it. What I think will happen with Ghislaine Maxwell, I think what you'll see happen is I think she's going to roll on Prince Andrew. I think you're going to see some really, really bad stuff come out from him, pretty much linking him to all of that, letting him be the fall guy for this incredibly thick, long line ring of you know, people between Jeffrey Epstein and Maxwell. That'll be the last you really hear of it. We'll see Maxwell probably serve some fake time in some super swanky prison, and Prince Andrew will probably be like thrown off the side of a ship or something, and that'll be it. All the other people on the flight logs will all be totally okay. So this Ghislaine Maxwell thing is worth watching. It really is. I mean, we're seeing now, you know, judges, families being attacked and you know, shot at their homes. We just saw, I can't remember, Salas, I think was her name, the judge who was given to the Epstein case. The judge was kind of trying to figure out where all the money was coming from that was given to Epstein. Next thing you know, a hitman was sent to her house and shot her son dead and almost killed the husband. And people now are saying that it was an alt-right woman-hating man who did this. I don't know what to believe. Look, something crazy is happening out there amidst COVID, amidst Naked Athena protest. All I can tell you is take care of you. Take care of number one. Listen to this podcast. Share this podcast. We're really the only thing you can trust here in this insane backdrop of the universe that we're living in. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to kind of try and walk through some of this. This shit's everywhere. I mean, even doing prep for the show, even talking about the show, or even doing the show, we're jumping from Kanye West to Maxwell and Epstein to Hilary Clinton's alternative reality show to Naked Athena to anti-maskers. It's just at this point absolutely crazy. It's hard to even do the shows because it's hard to even go from insane story to insane story to insane story to insane story. I mean, the fact that the sandwich, the meat of this show, was an alternative reality Hillary Rodham TV show is all you really need to hear. That's honestly as crazy as it gets, that is the backdrop of what the hell we're dealing with. And I didn't even get to the Washington Redskins renaming their team the Washington Football Team. That's actually a thing. The Washington Redskins renamed themselves the Washington Football Team. I didn't even get to Mark Zuckerberg looking like a robot in Hawaii surfing with a face full of sunscreen and Mark Zuckerberg being a robot. Those stories are being pushed to the back burner. That's how crazy life is right now, that we're not talking about the Washington Football Team and we're not talking about Mark Zuckerberg looking thicker than a Snicker on a surfboard in Hawaii with a white face mask cover-up thing, robot eyes, Mark Zuckerberg. Thank you very much, guys, for watching or listening. I do appreciate that very, very much. This episode went out about 10 days, I think, after the last one, which is way longer than we usually do. So the next episode after this will be much shorter. I don't like to go those long dates, but sometimes it is what it is. So thank you again for listening. I hope you do enjoy this. This will go out on a Friday. So have a great Friday if that's when you're listening to it. If not, then have a great day whenever you are listening to it. Again, feedback's always appreciated. You can reach me on Twitter or Instagram, James_Skrmetta, Skrmetta. If not, if you're on YouTube or whatever, just go to the comments. It's a good place to go. I do check the comments and all that stuff, and I do appreciate it very much, guys. Thank you again for listening to the James Skrmetta Show podcast, and I'll see you next episode.